Oh, happy Monday to you. Welcome back to another episode of The Liz Wheeler Show. I'm your host, Liz Wheeler. First things first today, please subscribe to the show. If you are watching on X, make sure you hit that follow button. If you are not watching on X, go to x.com/Liz_Wheeler. Go to youtube.com/Liz Wheeler and hit that subscribe button as well. Make sure you hit the notification bell on YouTube so that every time we go live, you can join us while we are live so that we are sitting here together. And we have video on Spotify now. So please go to Spotify, search The Liz Wheeler Show, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review. Greatly appreciate it. And a big welcome to all of the new viewers who have been joining The Liz Wheeler Show lately over the past days and weeks and months. This whole summer has just been incredible for the show. And I'm so grateful to each and every one of you. All right. We have a fun topic to talk about on the show today. I say fun with a question mark after it because at first glance, it might seem like petty personal drama. It might even seem like gossip, but I assure you, it is not. It is substantive. It is significant. A smoldering fight between two enormously influential conservative figures has suddenly erupted into flames, an all out feud between Tucker Carlson and Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer released a bombshell allegation accusing Tucker Carlson of refusing to publish the Hunter Biden laptop story back in October of 2020, just before the 2020 presidential election between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Laura Loomer accuses Tucker of being given the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop on a little red flash drive and says that even though all of the contents of that flash drive were verified and verifiable, that Tucker Carlson deliberately chose not to publish the contents of that laptop. We're going to go through her allegations here because it's worth investigating whether these allegations are true, because if they are true, it's a pretty big deal, or whether they're not true. But the thing is, before we get into that, the bubbling and sniping between Laura Loomer and Tucker Carlson has been going on for months now. Let's just say a lot of us suspected that something was brewing between the two of them because the comments that they have been publicly throwing back and forth are a little bit less than collegial. And I want to show you a couple of those comments. Today's episode is sponsored by Crowd Health. What if you could get healthcare for just $100? Now, you've heard me talk about Crowd Health before in my story. My husband and I quit our health insurance because, it's a crock. It's expensive. The premium is expensive every month. The deductible is unreachable. And what do we get in return? Claim denials. Well, I want to tell you, we quit our health insurance and we joined Crowd Health. And I want to tell you about something new that they have just introduced. You can finally rid yourself of the bureaucracy of the healthcare system and take agency over your own health. It's the most maha thing you've ever heard. Crowd Health just introduced what they're calling the Black Swan membership. It's the healthcare alternative for people who want autonomy over their care, their costs, and their lifestyle. They just need a little help with the Black Swan events that do happen in our lives, no matter how cautious we are. For just $95 a month, you get access to a team of health bill negotiators, low-cost prescription and lab testing tools, and a database of low-cost but high-quality doctors vetted by Crowd Health. You stay in control without insurance and their networks dictating your care. And what if something major does happen to you or a member of your family? Well, in that case, you pay the first $15,000 and then the crowd steps in to help fund the rest. It feels like options that we used to have before Obamacare messed everything up. And if you use my promo code Liz, it's only $80 for the first 3 months. Visit joincrowdhealth.com, use promo code Liz. That's joincrowdhealth.com, use promo code Liz. Come on over, join us. I am part of the crowd. My family is part of the crowd. Joincrowdhealth.com, promo code Liz. The mandatory disclaimer: Crowd Health is not insurance. I personally like to call it assurance. Opt out. Take your power back. This is how we win. Okay, so for those of us who have been watching, Tucker Carlson and Laura Loomer have been escalating their attacks on one another for several months now. And this has been done in a public way. There's been a sniping, an exchange. You can call it of personal insults, but it seems that there's something substantive, some philosophical difference below the surface that's been informing this escalating feud that has now that is now blown open into the public. I want to show you a little bit of this escalation, the trail of what has happened here before we get into the details and the receipts that Laura Loomer provides in her report, these allegations that she has unveiled against Tucker Carlson. So back in July, today, this is the first week in August, so a little bit less than a month ago, Tucker Carlson issued what appeared to be a preemptive response to Laura Loomer. This is reported by the New York Times. This is what he said, and I quote, "She, Laura Loomer, is like a child wielding a loaded firearm called Twitter. I don't blame her. I blame the adults who take her seriously." End quote. Now, I find this to be interesting because Laura Loomer, inarguably, regardless of what side of the aisle that you're on, regardless of what side of the divide within the conservative movement you're on, Laura Loomer has arguably, or inarguably, I should say, been the one most responsible for rooting out neocons who had infiltrated the Trump administration. Mike Waltz, President Trump's original national security advisor, obviously a neocon. A lot of his staff, provable neocons. Those individuals were fired, and Mike Waltz was demoted to the UN thanks to Laura Loomer's reporting on the background of their beliefs, whether it's anti-Trumpism, whether it's holding a neocon foreign policy philosophy. Laura Loomer was the one who brought that to light. And then she didn't just bring that to light on X. She's the one who took a dossier of this information to the White House. She sat down in the Oval Office with President Trump. Reportedly, according to my sources, some of the individuals whom she was reporting on were sitting in that room when she presented the information to President Trump. Imagine the courage that takes to present information, negative information about someone. You're advocating for that person to be fired, and that person is sitting in the room. She did it because she wants to protect the Trump administration from neocon infiltrators, people who want to get us into forever wars. So when Tucker Carlson says, "I blame the adults who take her seriously," well, what would you have people not take her seriously? Now, he may have a more detailed response than that, and that's neither here nor there for the moment. This is just an example of this back and forth sniping. And Laura Loomer has taken part in this too. On August 1st, she posted on X and said, "Tucker is such a hater. Never seen a more petty grown man." Go back a couple of weeks before that on July 14th. Laura Loomer, I mean, this one's really vicious. She says, "When you think about it, there's really no difference between this shooter," and she had quote tweeted a news story about a man in Kentucky who had opened fire on a state trooper, and this man was shouting "Free Palestine" and wearing the checkered keffiyeh neckerchief that Hamas terrorists wear. She said, "When you think about it, there's really no difference between this shooter and people like Tucker Carlson." Yikes. Yikes. So this, as you can see, this is not just personal. This is a vicious, deeply rooted animosity between the two of them. In late June, you go back even further than that. In late June, Tucker Carlson on video called Laura Loomer the world's creepiest human. Take a look at this.
But Levin, again, doesn't care about the United States. And they're all wearing the Trump skin suit right now because they think it suits their purposes. These are people who hated Trump. They're anti-Trump. They're never Trump. And that would include a lot of people on Fox News who I worked with for 15 years. I know what their political views are. They're my colleagues. They hate Trump. They hate him personally. They hate his agenda. They hate his economic views. And they really hate his foreign policy views, which in private they describe as insane and isolationist. He's a Nazi and all this stuff. I mean, they really have contempt for him. They kept him off the air at Fox News while I was there against my protests. So that's all true, and it's very frustrating as a literal person who cares about what's true to see people jumping up, Mark Levin or Laura Loomer, that's world's creepiest human. I don't even know where she came from or who she is exactly, but she's running around. I'm Donald Trump's, defender. It's bizarre.
Champion.
Champion, and I'm the arbiter of what it means to be for America. Someone who, again, has no interest in the United States, demonstrated no interest. So I think it's just important. It's not a matter of score settling, and I don't care what Mark Levin does in his private life. I don't care what his opinions are. And Laura Loomer, I'm not even really sure who she is. However, if people like that are able to take over a political movement whose stated goal is to serve the United States, first and foremost, America first, make America great again, if those people can take control of that political movement, First of all, it's an offense against reality and truth. But second, it's really dangerous for the country. I mean, they washed out of the Democratic Party, the same people, and now they're trying to take over the Republican Party. How about no? Unbroken track record of failure, unbroken track record of ideas that hurt the United States in measurable ways, impoverished the United States, put us in unpayable debt, killed a ton of people, destabilized the world, caused a refugee crisis in Europe, destroyed Europe. That's a lot of destruction for one group of people and one set of really bad ideas, the John Boltons, the Bill Kristols. Can they be allowed to take over the Trump White House? No. How about no? Just as an American. I mean, I don't really care what people think of me at this point. I'm 56. You were wrong. Well, I've been wrong many, many times. I'll be wrong many, many more times. But the one thing I am is sincere. I really mean it. I don't care about the effect on me. I don't want to relive Iraq. And I know the people who did it. I lived among them. I defended it. I repeated their talking points. Not doing that again. And we came really close to doing that again because of Mark Levin and Laura Loomer and the rest of these morons who've never even left New Jersey. Like, they don't know anything about the world. That's the other thing. They're dumb. They don't know. Not only they don't know the population of Iran, they don't know anything. They don't know the nations that border it. They just don't know anything. And I'm not making an argument for expertise or having been there, but I am making an argument for being responsible when you demand that the U.S. military do certain things. Okay, then tell me what happens next. They can't, because again, they don't care.
Okay. Again, you can see the background here. This is months and months in the making, this sniping back and forth between Tucker Carlson and Laura Loomer. And it's come from both sides. They've both levied vicious personal insults and attacks against each other. And I think many of us have seen this, maybe not paid a ton of attention to it. But this has been, suffice to say, this has been building and growing for months and months leading up to yesterday, when Laura Loomer said that she had an expose that she would be releasing on Tucker Carlson, which she subsequently did. By the way, Tucker Carlson lumps Laura Loomer with Mark Levin into this group that he's calling neocons. I think it's pretty safe to describe Mark Levin as a neocon, but Laura Loomer was quite literally the one that got neocons fired from the National Security Council. That doesn't make sense to me, but that's neither here nor there for the moment. So today, Laura Loomer releases an expose on Tucker Carlson, accusing him of deliberately suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story in October of 2020, the month before the 2020 presidential election. This is what she writes. In the weeks leading up to the 2020 U.S. presidential election, a bombshell of unprecedented magnitude was poised to reshape the political landscape. The Hunter Biden laptop scandal, a digital trove containing evidence of corruption, foreign influence, and illicit activities tied to the Biden family. This was not mere rumor or speculation. It was a fully authenticated device, backed by metadata chains, device logs, and financial records that painted a damning picture of Joe Biden and his inner circle. Yet, at a critical juncture, one of America's most influential conservative voices, Tucker Carlson, made a choice that would reverberate through history. By suppressing this explosive material, Carlson not only shielded the Biden family from scrutiny, but arguably helped tilt the scales of the 2020 election. Laura writes, this expose delves into the details of Carlson's actions, his personal and financial ties to the Bidens, and the motivations behind his decision to bury a story that could have altered the course of American political history and had disastrous consequences for our country. Okay, so that's a big buildup. If you want to substantiate a big buildup like this, you better provide receipts. Well, in the next post, Laura Loomer provides receipts. She says, in mid-October 2020, with the presidential election less than 3 weeks away, an intelligence source who I personally know met with Tucker Carlson's executive producer, Alexander McCaskill, at a Hilton Garden Inn on Long Island, New York, for 4 hours. The purpose of the meeting was clear: to deliver the original authenticated Hunter Biden laptop and a USB drive containing meticulously curated intelligence-grade products extracted from Hunter Biden's laptop. The contents were staggering in scope and implication. Laura includes in this post a photograph of a USB drive, a red USB drive, flash drive, and a business card. Alexander McCaskill, senior producer, Tucker Carlson Tonight from Fox News, to authenticate that actually, yes, he in fact was there. This is his business card. She goes on to say, here's what was on the red USB drive that was given to Tucker's senior producer, Alexander McCaskill. financial transactions, logs tied to shell companies and foreign governments, pointing to possible money laundering, tax evasion, and influence peddling. Encrypted communications, chat records, and device logs linking Hunter Biden to illicit activities, including drug use, prostitution, and possibly human trafficking. Audio-visual evidence, material implicating Hunter Biden in drug use, firearms violations, and other criminal behavior. And compromised communications, correspondence indicating foreign access to Joe Biden's unsecured communication channels during his vice presidency, raising serious national security concerns. So 4 things included on that flash drive. Loomer then reports the USB drive was a smoking gun with validated metadata, unbroken digital chains of custody, and corroboration from known financial records. This was not raw, unverified data. It was intelligence-grade evidence of corruption at the highest levels of American politics, implicating a presidential candidate's immediate family. The executive producer, she writes, reviewed portions of the material on site and expressed immediate interest, assuring the source that Carlson himself would broadcast the findings within 48 hours. The producer took possession of the USB drive and access credentials to a secure cloud archive mirroring its contents. The stage was set for a seismic revelation that could sway undecided voters in key swing states. But what followed was not Tucker Carlson's bombshell broadcast that was promised. It was silence. Laura Loomer then reports, days after the handover of the USB drive, Carlson took to his Fox News program, Tucker Carlson Tonight, on October 28th, 2020, and delivered a peculiar claim. A USB drive containing, quote, important documents related to Hunter Biden had been, quote, lost in the mail. She included the clip of it. We're going to play a little part of this clip. Take a look. This is Tucker Carlson in October of 2020 on Fox News. Okay, we'll play that for you in just a moment. We're having a technical difficulty bringing the audio of that up. Suffice to say, at that moment, Tucker Carlson, instead of reporting on that flash drive, on the contents of that flash drive, said actually these documents had somehow gotten lost in the mail. Laura Loomer says this explanation raised immediate red flags. Internal communications later obtained by the source revealed that there was no evidence of the mailing of the flash drive by Carlson's team. The lost in the mail narrative was a fabrication, a deliberate misdirection to deflect scrutiny and to bury the story to protect Tucker Carlson's longtime friend, Hunter Biden. When they claimed the drive was lost in the mail, Tucker Carlson and his team never reached out to the source again to get another copy or to follow up. They ghosted the source. And here's perhaps where it gets interesting. Laura Loomer says this act of suppression was not a mere oversight or logistical error. It was a calculated decision to withhold evidence of national significance. Carlson, a figure trusted by millions of conservative viewers, had the opportunity to expose corruption that could have reshaped the public's perception of Joe Biden. Instead, he chose to spike the story, ensuring that it never reached the airwaves in the critical final days of the 2020 presidential election. She goes on, and this data is quite shocking. She said the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story had measurable consequences, which you and I knew. According to internal RNC swing state analytics reviewed in November 2020, after the election, a full broadcast expose by Carlson would have reached millions of viewers and influenced between 2.8% and 3.4% of undecided voters in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. These margins were significant. Joe Biden's final victory margins in these states were razor thin. In Michigan, Biden won by 2.8%. In Pennsylvania, Biden won by 80%, or by 1.2%, 80,000 votes. In Wisconsin, Biden won by 0.6%. Laura says, we know the election was stolen, but those were the margins of the stolen victory, quote unquote. Laura says, had Carlson aired the Hunter Biden laptop story, the shift in voter sentiment could have flipped these battleground states, potentially altering the outcome of the 2020 election. She goes on to talk about how Tucker Carlson has a history of being against Trump. There was text messages that were revealed publicly during discovery in a lawsuit against Fox News related to the Dominion voting systems that showed Tucker Carlson saying that he despised Trump, et cetera, et cetera. We've seen all of that before. Then Laura Loomer says, why would Tucker Carlson, a so-called vocal critic of establishment corruption, suppress a story of such magnitude? She says the answer lies in a web of personal, financial, and strategic entanglements that bound him to the Biden family and their network. She says, number one, direct investment ties. Documents from Hunter Biden's investor ledger, released by whistleblowers in 2020 and 2021, reveal that Carlson was a financial associate in at least one Washington, D.C. real estate venture linked to Hunter Biden and Rosemont entities. While non-controlling, this investment suggests a pre-existing business rapport that Carlson never disclosed to his audience. Emails from Hunter Biden's accounts further show exchanges between the two men from 2014 to 2017 discussing media exposure, real estate opportunities, and reputation management. These ties created a conflict of interest that Carlson concealed while covering Biden-related stories during his employment at Fox News. Laura Loomer then reports the Ashley Madison scandal. In 2015, the Ashley Madison data breach exposed Hunter Biden's active account, verified by matching credit card details, email, and metadata. Independent researchers, including those at Breitbart, approached Carlson's producers with this evidence, but he declined to report it, citing the story as, quote, too volatile and not worth touching. This decision, later described in counter disinformation circles as spiking, shielded Hunter Biden from public scrutiny and suggested a pattern of protecting the Biden family. Laura says, in November 2014, Carlson emailed Hunter Biden to request a college recommendation for his son, Buckley Carlson, who was applying to Georgetown University. Hunter agreed to assist, and Buckley was accepted. The favors that Hunter Biden and Tucker Carlson have done for each other over the years has created a personal channel of influence between Carlson and Biden families, which Carlson has never publicly disclosed. Although I do believe I've heard the story about Buckley Carlson and the email that Tucker Carlson sent to Hunter asking for Hunter's help in getting his son into Georgetown. Laura Loomer says strategic calculations beyond personal ties. Carlson's decision may have been influenced by corporate pressures at Fox News or a strategic choice to preserve leverage with powerful figures, et cetera, et cetera. This is big if this is true. This is very big if this is true. Now, almost immediately after Laura Loomer posted this expose on Tucker Carlson, there were some people who tried to debunk this, which we should examine, because any story that's reported, we should always examine its veracity, try to verify whether it's true or whether it's not true, or whether parts of it are true or parts of it are not true. Miranda Devine of the New York Post, and remember, it was the New York Post that ultimately published the Hunter Biden laptop story on October 14th of 2020, just a couple weeks before the 2020 presidential election. Miranda Devine responded to Laura Loomer and said, "This is not true, Laura Loomer. Tucker Carlson had me and my then colleague Sohrab Ahmari on his Fox News show practically every night for at least 2 weeks from October 14th, 2020, the day the New York Post broke the Hunter Biden laptop story, hardly covering up. He wanted every detail, and he was honest with his audience that he and his wife Susie had known Hunter and his wife Kathleen socially in Washington, D.C. in the years before Hunter became a raging crack addict. Tucker has continued to report on the laptop ever since, including interviewing Hunter's former business partners, Devin Archer and Tony Bobolinsky." Now, Laura, of course, responded to Miranda Devine's post, and she said, "Miranda Devine, big fan of your work, and I like you very much, but my story is true. I am focused on October and November of 2020 up until the day of the 2020 election. What did Tucker Carlson report on Hunter Biden's laptop in October and November? What contents did he publish? What did he actually publish? Once Biden was in office, it didn't really matter. We now know the contents on the laptop could have changed the election results by at least 3.8% in key swing states, probably even more. If he had you on after the election, even though he was given access to a full copy of the authenticated laptop and a USB drive with intelligence-grade product from Hunter's laptop on it, why didn't he publish the laptop in October? While I admire your work," Laura Loomer says to Miranda Devine, "you're going on his show after the election is irrelevant. Tucker Carlson is a liar," Laura Loomer says, "and he is a subversive operator, et cetera, et cetera." Now, Miranda Devine says she was on Tucker Carlson's show not just after the election, but after the publication by the New York Post on October 14th. So those 2 points are very important, because talking about the Hunter Biden laptop story after the election itself isn't terribly risky. It was censored before the election, but talking about it after isn't going to impact the outcome of the election. Talking about the laptop, Hunter Biden's laptop, after the story broke also isn't as risky. So if Tucker Carlson talked about the laptop only after the New York Post publish the story. It was their reputation on the line. They were the ones that were going to get the political blowback for publishing that, or covered it mostly after the election, then yes, that is significantly different than publishing the contents of the laptop itself, the verified contents, exclusively and much earlier than it was published by the New York Post. So again, the question here is Laura Loomer's report true? This is kind of a big deal if it is true. Yesterday, by the way, President Trump voiced support for Laura Loomer and her investigative work. This is what he said about her.
It's very nice. I mean, I know she's known as a radical right, but I think Laura Loomer is a very nice person. I've known her for a long time. And, personally, I think she's a patriot. And she gets excited because of the fact that she's a patriot. And she doesn't like things going on that she thinks are bad for the country. I like her.
President Trump's analysis, I feel like it's one of his underrated skills, is analyzing other people's character and behavior. And he literally addressed, well, yeah, sometimes Laura Loomer gets kind of vicious and sometimes she gets personal with her insults because she gets so passionate, because she cares about bad things happening to our country. I mean, the man's not wrong, regardless of whether you like when Laura Loomer gets vicious or personal. He's not wrong. His analysis of people, of human nature, like I said, is underappreciated. His skill at analyzing human nature is underappreciated. So let's talk about the implications here. When Laura Loomer posts these stats, these numbers of how many people would have changed their vote and not voted for Biden had they known about the Hunter Biden laptop story, those numbers are significant. There's two different polls that are worth noting here. There was an analysis done by an organization called Tip Insights, and this is their quote. Paul Sperry reported on this, and it's actually entered into congressional record. Quote, a whopping 79% of Americans suggest President Donald Trump likely would have won re-election if voters had known the truth about Hunter Biden's laptop, that it was real and not Russian disinformation, as intelligence officials aligned with Joe Biden falsely led the public to believe, a new national poll reveals. Again, specifically, Democrats, 47% said that knowing before the election that the laptop contents were real and not disinformation would have changed their voting decision, including more than 2/3, 71% of Democrats. Those are enormous numbers. You remember the experience leading up to the 2020 election. Back when X was Twitter, we weren't even allowed to send the New York Post's report, the URL, on DM. The DM said, undeliverable, we cannot send, let alone posting anything about it publicly on Twitter. It was entirely suppressed by Twitter, by Facebook, by YouTube. You weren't allowed to talk about it. They didn't want you to know because of these numbers. Because 71% of Democrats said, actually, if we had known about the influence peddling and the crimes of the Biden family and Hunter Biden's activities, his drug use, his illicit activities, his drug use, his engaging in prostitution. If we'd known about this, that he sold access to foreign adversaries to his father when his father was vice president, and they profited from this, we wouldn't have voted for Joe Biden. An additional poll from the Media Research Center said 17% of Biden voters from swing states would have changed their vote. They would have not voted for Joe Biden had they known about the Hunter Biden laptop story. All of this to say, this allegation by Laura Loomer that Tucker Carlson had in his possession a red USB flash drive, on that flash drive was the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop, and it was verified. Financial records, metadata, audio-visual content. It was verified. Intelligence grade product, not some rumor that you hear at the water cooler, not some random tweet that you found that you assume is true without a citation. And he chose not to publish this. I would love to hear Tucker's response to Laura Loomer's expose, a serious response to Laura Loomer's expose. He said on October 20th that flash drive, his excuse was it was lost in the mail. Well, That's conflicting information with what Laura Loomer reports, that Tucker's executive producer met at a Hilton Garden Inn on Long Island, New York, and that this was handed to him in person. It wasn't something that was sent via the post office or UPS or FedEx. It was not something that was sent via the mail. So which of those two things is true? Was it handed over in person to your producer, or was it lost in the mail? And would Tucker Carlson testify to the lost in the mail excuse under oath? Again, this is a big deal because it could have impacted the outcome of that presidential election that Joe Biden won. You have to remember, Tucker Carlson's show on Fox News at that time was the most watched primetime cable news show in history. More people in our country and around the world tuned in to hear what Tucker Carlson had to say than to anybody else. While big tech was working hand in glove with deep state actors who were suppressing this story deliberately because they knew the impact it would have on people's decisions on who they would cast their votes for. If Tucker Carlson had published the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop, even before the New York Post's expose, then Donald Trump might have won that election outright in 2020. And here's my take on this whole thing. There are questions on both sides that need to be answered, but I think Tucker Carlson's viewers want to know if Tucker Carlson gatekeeps. Because you can call us the new media, you can call us, some of us are President Trump's base, supporters of the president's agenda. You can call us once burned, twice shy, because we have been so abused, not only by the deep state, not only by the media, but by the experts, that we don't take anybody's word for it. We want the receipts. We want to see it with our own eyes. We aren't into gatekeeping anymore. There's nobody that I can think of that I trust as a gatekeeper. I want to see the stuff myself. And if there's anybody, Tucker Carlson or anybody else, who's engaging in gatekeeping of information while presenting himself as being radically transparent, that's not going to fly in the eyes of viewers, because the easiest way to lose the trust of your viewers is to, well, lie to them, misrepresent yourself, or abandon authenticity. Tucker Carlson says he's sincere. I think Tucker Carlson's viewers want to know if Tucker Carlson gatekeeps. Now, to be fair, Tucker Carlson may deny this, and he may have a really good reason for denying this allegation from Laura Loomer. He may say, well, we were in the process of verifying this information on the USB drive when the New York Post scooped us. We couldn't just run with this without checking to see if this was true, because these allegations were so salacious, so scandalous, and the impact, one way or the other, if the impact, if they were true, would be so enormous, and the impact, if they were false, would be so damaging to our reputation. He may say we were in the process of verifying this when the New York Post scooped us. It's what I would predict that we will hear from Tucker Carlson if he responds to this at all. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's exactly what was happening, because you do have to be extra careful with verifying information, especially in this day and age. Maybe that's true, but if so, then why did his producer and his team ghost the source? Why did they stop responding to the source? Why did they not reach out to the source again? If this flash drive was lost in the mail, why didn't they ask for another one? Why didn't they just access the contents of the USB from this secure cloud? They were given the login for this cloud, to my understanding. Why didn't they reach out again? Why didn't they access it via cloud? Why instead did they say, well, it was just lost in the mail? I think Tucker Carlson should respond to this. I think he will respond to this in his own way, but I hope it's not just with personal attacks on Laura Loomer, because his audience deserves a little bit more than that. By the way, this is not the first time that a Fox News host passed on a salacious Biden story in the lead up to the 2020 presidential elections. My sources tell me that Sean Hannity, primetime Fox News host, passed on the Ashley Biden diary story. Remember, this was fall of 2020, in the lead up to the presidential election. The Ashley Biden diary contained diary entries written by Ashley Biden depicting Joe Biden taking what Ashley Biden called in the diary inappropriate showers with her. And this diary was highly verified before it was published. It was offered to Sean Hannity as an exclusive, and Sean Hannity turned it down. My sources tell me that Sean Hannity's excuse was they couldn't verify the contents of this diary. But my source says that the I can't verify it excuse was absurd at that point because they had bulletproof verification of the authenticity of Ashley Biden's diary, including handwriting matching by forensic experts, in addition to other bulletproof verification. Perhaps the real reason is obviously people don't want to deal with the political blowback of publishing stories that are actually going to make a difference in how people cast their ballots. This report by Laura Loomer deserves a response, and you can weigh in on the live chat here on whether you think that Laura Loomer's reporting is accurate, whether you think Tucker Carlson is going to have an adequate defense against Laura Loomer's allegation. Tucker, as a powerful voice, should be holding the powerful accountable, not covering for them. And the $1 million question here is, did his personal relationship or his business relationship with Hunter Biden contribute to his reluctance to publish this story? Again, viewers deserve an explanation if this is true, if Tucker passed on the Hunter Biden laptop story, and why. All right. I said to my producer, Spencer, last week, I said, oh, thank God we don't have to cover the Sydney Sweeney story. Thank God we don't have to touch that. And of course, ironically, like 2 minutes later, the president and the vice president both weigh in here. Sydney Sweeney is, I don't even know what you would call her. Is she an actress? Is she just a model? She's, the hot young thing of our day and age. And she was hired by American Eagle to star in their jeans ad. And this ad has created quite the controversy. We're going to show, I think we have a couple of photos that we're going to show on this screen. We're not going to show all of the photos here because some of them are a little bit too scandalous for me. But we're going to show a couple of these photos. But here's the thing. Almost immediately following the publication of this ad, there was this divide, the right versus the left. The right said, yeah, this is such a great answer to the woke ads that we were seeing from these companies. You can think of like the Jaguar ads that were so creepy. They were such freaky ads. The Jaguar ads, and Jaguar's revenue plummeted as a result of that. You could think of Cosmo magazine trying to glorify obesity, telling us that these morbidly obese women, that's what you should find sexually attractive, they said, and you're the one that's being, fattest or whatever ism they've assigned it. If you don't find these women attractive, if you like fit and healthy women's bodies to look like women's bodies were intended to look, then you must be problematic. Well, so this is the background against which the American Eagle ad controversy is pitted here. So as soon as this American Eagle ad was released, the tagline, of course, is Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Ha ha ha. What a clever pun. It's not actually even the best pun that I've ever heard, but Sydney Sweeney, it's a collab. Sydney Sweeney created with American Eagle this specific pair of Sydney jeans designed because this is how she wants it. It's supposed to be a pun because she has great genes. She's pretty. She's gorgeous. Haha. It's super funny. Whatever. Doesn't even seem to me to be that unique. Whatever. And there it is. There's a picture on the screen. There's nothing that controversial about these ads. It's a girl and she's wearing denim. She's famous and she's selling jeans for this brand. Okay. So the left's response to this was to say that this was white supremacy. They said this is racist to say that Sydney Sweeney has great genes. What? Why? Well, because talking about her genes, her genes, her DNA, must mean that you're into eugenics, that you want some kind of white master race and you think her genes are superior to other people. This is the left. This is how deranged the left is. Obviously, they were talking about she has great genes. She's pretty. Okay, that's all there is to it. But the left, of course, is crazy in and of themselves. And so this is what annoys me so much that I have to weigh in on this at all. I didn't even want to talk about Sydney Sweeney. I don't care about this ad. But the accusations that this ad, which you're looking at on the screen, is racist or Nazi or has some eugenicist undertone is so stupid. It's so evil that obviously I'm going to defend her against these false allegations. And the reason it annoys me is I know this is going to make me sound like a mom here, but I don't like to defend hypersexual advertisements. This ad objectifies Sydney Sweeney's body and the purpose of her posing like this. And by the way, the pictures that we're showing on the screen right now, these are the most vanilla photos of the entire ad campaign. There were some that were a little bit more sexual. The purpose of her posing like this or in her more sexual poses is to make men lust after her. I'm just saying it how it is. They don't like her. They just sexually desire her body, and they're using that to try to make sales. And listen, again, I'm going to sound like a mom here. Sex is great, but out of its proper context, it's a lie, and it's harmful, and it's immoral. And this kind of sexualized ad promotes sin. The answer to wokeness, and we do have a problem with wokeness, and we should answer it. The answer to wokeness is not hypersexualization. We don't want to promote unhealthy lifestyles, but neither do we want to promote hypersexualization. This is not the proper antidote to wokeness. It's actually very similar to how Andrew Tate identifies correctly, accurately. He diagnoses a societal wrong, the feminization of men, this anti-man, wokeness that is aimed at young men in our culture and all around Western civilization. Andrew Tate accurately diagnoses this problem. That's why he grew such a following. But his prescription for that problem, how to fix it, his antidote is evil. His antidote is, pornography and objectifying women and materialism and self-idolatry. And it leads young men on a path of self-destruction. All of this being said, yes, the Cosmo cover glorifying obesity and gaslighting you if you aren't attracted to that morbidly obese woman, that's obviously wrong. But the antidote to that wrong is not turning attractive women's bodies into sexual objects. So no, Sydney Sweeney is not racist. This ad is not racist. It's not Nazi. It's not white supremacist. It's not eugenicist. But I still wish I didn't have to defend the ads because I don't want to defend hypersexualization because that is also harmful. Also, the men who say that she's not pretty are just betraying to the world that they watch too much porn because women in porn are fake. They have fake hair and fake faces, fake lips, fake eyelashes, fake breasts, fake butts. They're coated in pounds of makeup and body tape, photoshopped and edited. They don't look like real women or behave like real women. And Sydney Sweeney is a naturally pretty girl. She's got a girl next door look. She doesn't need makeup to be fresh and attractive and beautiful. But if you've watched too much porn and your senses are dulled to real, natural human beauty, then yeah, she's probably not enough to arouse you. That's what happens when you watch porn. Studies show real sex and real women are soon not enough. Soon, you're Glenn Greenwald. All right, weigh in the chat here. Sydney Sweeney, Tucker Carlson, Laura Loomer, what are we thinking? Jimmy says, you're nuts, Liz. I told you I was going to sound like a mom when it comes to Sydney Sweeney, but I regret to inform you that I am correct. Trigger warning says Glenn Greenwald, ha ha ha. Isn't it funny how many conservatives came to his defense after he was exposed engaging in a humiliation fetish, homosexual, sex, prostitute video? Strange. It seems that most of you agree that Tucker Carlson should respond to Laura Loomer's allegations that Laura provided enough substantiation and receipts of her report that it is worth a response. I think that's fair. I think we don't like gatekeepers anymore, you and I. We don't like to think that media figures who we trust are actually deciding what they want to talk about or what they want to hide based on their own personal interests in how they would be impacted if a political story was broken. And I think that's what we fear. By the way, for those of you, and I'm reading the chat here and it's cracking me up. For those of you who are laughing about my Sydney Sweeney take, President Trump actually weighed in on Sydney Sweeney. Yeah, you want to know why? Because Sydney Sweeney was revealed this weekend since, I think it was like a year or two ago. Sydney Sweeney was revealed to be a registered Republican in the state of Florida. A registered Republican in the state of Florida. And this was President Trump's response to that. Because, of course, as soon as he finds out that she's a registered Republican and as soon as his son talks to him about it. This is what he posted on True Social. We'll show this first. Sydney Sweeney, he says, a registered Republican, has the quote unquote hottest ad out there. Sounds like the biggest boomer right now. It's for American Eagle, and the jeans are flying off the shelves. Go get them, Sydney. On the other side of the ledger, Jaguar did a stupid and seriously woke advertisement that is a total disaster. The CEO just resigned in disgrace, and the company is in absolute turmoil. Who wants to buy a Jaguar after looking at that disgraceful ad? Shouldn't they have learned a lesson from Bud Light, which went woke and essentially destroyed in a short campaign the company? The market cap destruction has been unprecedented, with billions of dollars so foolishly lost. Or just look at woke singer Taylor Swift. Ever since I alerted the world as to what she was by saying the truth that I can't stand her, hate, she was booed out of the Super Bowl and became no longer hot. The tide has seriously turned. Being woke is for losers. Being Republican is what you want to be. Thank you for your attention to the matter. There was another post, too, where Donald Trump referenced that his son Barron liked Sydney Sweeney. I was like, yeah, I bet he does. I bet he does. Listen, interestingly, he talks about the financial implications of the Sydney Sweeney ad. American Eagle was struggling as a company in the first quarter of this year. And since they launched this American Eagle ad, their revenue, their market value has increased, or not their revenue, their market value has increased by between $200 and $400 million. That's how much their stock prices have increased. That's in addition, of course, to the $65 million in free media exposure, because literally everyone, including the president and the vice president of the United States, is talking about this. There was a report that American Eagle actually did an internal poll when this controversy started initially. American Eagle didn't respond. They were quiet for a few days. And some people were like, oh, why are they quiet? Why aren't they making a comment about this? Well, the truth of the matter is because they were running internal polling to see if people liked their ad so that they could calibrate their response to the public backlash here. Well, reportedly, according to American Eagle's internal polling, 71% of their customers approve of the ad and only 29% disapprove. There was also a YouGov poll, and this one was a little more specific. It was about not Sydney Sweeney and the ad and sort of the holistic version. It was narrowly about whether that pun was racist or whether it was appropriate. It asked whether the wordplay was appropriate or not. And according to the YouGov poll, 52% of people, this is not specific to American Eagle consumers, the way that American Eagle's internal polling was, reportedly, the YouGov poll found that 52% of people thought that the wordplay, Sydney Sweeney has great genes, was appropriate, and only 16% thought it was inappropriate. Which, of course, probably explains why American Eagle then came out in defense of Sydney Sweeney in this ad. Not only did their market value increase by, $300 million, a vast majority of not only their consumers, but the American public at large thought that they approved of the ad and thought the wordplay was appropriate. So why wouldn't American Eagle come out in support of their own ad? You got to love the crisis management response. The take a minute and let us run a poll before we decide what we say. Hilarious. Again, although I feel somewhat annoyed that we have to talk about this because I didn't want to initially. I didn't want to talk about this. I wanted to talk about, Tucker Carlson versus Laura Loomer and whether this story is or is not true. Maybe we'll run a poll on X a little bit later. Hey, Truthiness on YouTube live chat says, hey, Liz, nice men's shirt. Ha 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 ha. I will have you know it is a delightfully adorable jumpsuit and it's super styling, so I'm told. So make fun all you want, but it's called fashion. It's called fashion. Susan Johnson said even Dylan Mulvaney wouldn't buy a Jaguar. Oh man, Dylan Mulvaney really fell out of favor with the American public, huh? That is hilarious. Okay. Futhi Johnson says, are we gonna see any arrests by Bondi? Well, that, of course, is the $1 million question that underpins every single show we do. Is Pam Bondi going to make any arrests whatsoever? If you didn't see this, I highly recommend going back. On Wednesday, we had Hans Monkey on the show. And the second half of the episode, I asked him, as an attorney, what his analysis was of which individuals associated with Russiagate should face charges and under which statute those individuals should be charged. Because we had this report that Pam Bondi's Department of Justice and the FBI investigators were just looking at conspiracy to commit perjury. And I had said days before, Pam Bondi better not roll out some piddly little perjury charge against John Brennan. I want to see serious charges. We're talking seditious conspiracy, grand conspiracy, conspiracy to defraud the government, conspiracy to deprive the American people of rights under the color of law. I want to see serious charges, not a little slap on the wrist that's going to come with what, like 2 weeks in prison, and then because of that, you're famous and you make more money afterward. The $1 million question is what Pam Bondi is going to do. And Hans Bonke laid out what charges each individual should face and what the chances of conviction are, and a strategy, by the way, of how the Trump administration should place these charges, meaning what jurisdictions they should bring these charges under, so that we don't face a situation where we have a jury in New York and Washington, D.C. who is completely unwilling, because of their ideology, to convict, even if all of the facts meet the elements of the charges. So if you haven't watched that, highly recommend. We did. It's not only in last Wednesday's episode. You can also go to youtube.com/Liz Wheeler, or you can go to Spotify. We clipped that portion of the episode and published it separately so that you can watch that. Highly, highly recommend it. Although we still don't know the answer to the Pam Bondi question. I feel like we should have the Jeopardy music playing in the background. Like waiting on Pam Bondi. Waiting. All right, guys, make sure you're subscribed to the show, youtube.com/Liz Wheeler, x.com/Liz_Wheeler. On Spotify, we have video. And I've been loving all the comments you guys have been leaving under each episode. I've been reading them, so thank you for that. Make sure you're subscribed over there. Even if you primarily watch on a different platform, the more of you that can subscribe on Spotify, the more it helps the show. So if you could do that, I'd be so appreciative of it. Same time, same place tomorrow. 1 p.m. Eastern, live streaming right here on all platforms across the web. Thank you for being here with us today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show.